This is part 3 of rebuilding the SS Carl D. Bradley in Lego. And at this point, I've got the entire ship designed. So it was my intention to do separate videos, designing the bow and then the stern, and then putting them all together because we've already designed the middle of the ship. But things just kind of got away from me. It's been 2 weeks since our previous video, which was part 2 of this series. And I was sick for a portion of that time, and I'm also just not that good with YouTube right now, to be completely honest. Just like filming when I'm making progress on a kit, and then also just being comfortable in front of the camera. This is all just something that's new to me, and I'm gonna continue to get better at it with each video. So I really appreciate everybody that's watching right now, because the videos aren't as good as they will be in the future, but we gotta start somewhere. So I figured I'd make kind of just a catch-up video to show everybody the progress that's been made on the kit, as well as going into some design choices that were made along the way. So because this video deals so much with just the design of the ship itself, I wanted to preface it by saying that my process for designing kits has kind of changed based off of my experience designing the Bradley. Typically what I've done is design solely on the computer, and then I'll order a prototype and flesh out any mistakes or things that don't work physically, with the prototype. For this build, I started out with the computer, but there were some things I wanted to do, and I couldn't do them on the computer. They're just too difficult to design. So I resorted to just, bringing out this Lego box that I had and putting blueprints out in front of me and just building physically, in front of me. And I was able to achieve a lot more detail and interesting shapes than if I were to on the computer. So I think going forward, this is gonna be my main way of designing. I'm gonna design in person first, then I'll order a prototype, just make sure it all works, and then the kit will go into production, versus basically the other way around. It was kind of counterintuitive now that I look at it, the way I've been doing it. But that's just the interesting thing. I've been doing this for about 3 years, and you've never really mastered your craft. You're always gonna be updating it and finding new ways of doing things. So I thought that was really cool. So diving into the design of the model, we're gonna do this in 2 parts. We're gonna do the bow and the stern, and I'm gonna jump between showing you these physical models that I've built, and also the model on the computer, just some renderings of it. And I'm doing this because it's just kind of difficult to tell what's going on sometimes with all this multicolor stuff going on. I figured, that way I'll be able to see it in its correct colors. Moving into the design of the model. So the first thing that I did designing the bow is I took that midship section, that section of the hull that we did, and I extruded it. Because the first thing that I had to do was create this shear. It's a little upward slant of the hull. A lot of ships have this. And it's just something I really wanted to capture for this model. So I was able to do that, which I was really happy with. But one of the things that I had to account for because of that, it made the ship not as strong as I wanted it to be. And if you remember in our previous video, I had put a lot of emphasis on creating this hollowness of the hull. I really wanted there to be cargo space. But because the ship wasn't strong enough, I ended up having to run spars through that space to basically make the model more rigid. And so if we take off some cargo hatches here, you're gonna be able to see inside, and you notice it's not hollow. There's 2 plates on either side of the middle, running the length of the model. And these just essentially act as beams that just provide stability. It makes it really, really solid, but it takes away that empty cargo space that I had intentionally designed into the ship, which was kind of a bummer. But the good thing is that I can basically color those bricks to simulate cargo, as much as you can with Lego. So I figured using some tans and dark tans kind of simulate that limestone that would have been in the Bradley. The Bradley, when it sank, it did not have any cargo in it. But I figured, if I have to do this, I might as well color it like it's cargo. The next piece I wanna look at is the cargo boom. So this is something that was pretty difficult to design. It took me quite a lot of hours to get this satisfactory. On this physical model, you can see it just has some plates, but I found some Technic plates to make it look really good, make it look kind of like it's lattice like it is in real life. I experimented with some brick built curvature for the cargo boom, but it just did not look that good. So I'm very happy with how this turned out. And of course it looks a lot better in its actual colors, but it turns from side to side, it goes up and down. And another piece of that cargo boom was creating this A-frame. And this was directly behind the pilot house of the ship, and it supported the cargo boom as it would go up and down and go off the side of the ship. And that was also just a lot of trial and error, a lot easier to do building with physical bricks than it would have been building, just on the computer. Moving on for the last piece of the bow that I want to highlight for now, just the overall curvature. The shape of the bow is something that is really distinct and important. And if I turn it like this, you can see that, you're able to get a really good shape there. And these pieces right here are basically on hinges. And they're spaced just enough so that they fit in there and they're snug. You can press on them, they don't break or anything. So I was very happy with that. It'll be really fun for when you build this model because there's a lot of things where the technique just barely works. That's the fun that I have when building Lego models is, it's fun when you have a ship that looks good, but when you have techniques that really just work really well, that makes the experience all the better for me. So I try to include as many of those as possible when designing these things. So that's basically it for the bow section. Of course, we'll go into these in further detail in our next video when we build a prototype, but yeah, that's it for now. Moving on to the stern, I'm gonna stand up so that we can see this better. The main thing I wanted to focus on is there's a slight shear. It's kind of difficult to see, but this also goes up like this. And instead of being brick built, there were some larger bow curves that I wanted to use in this section, and so I had to do a hinged curve. So it slightly goes up like that. The building technique within this is really cool. I'll probably go over it in the prototype video that I do. And then the last thing I wanted to look at the stern is just the curvature in the back. I'm very happy with how that turned out. That was also just another thing that just worked. It's a really fun building technique and turned out really well. So that's it for this video. We've ordered the parts for the prototype and they'll be arriving later this week, at which point we'll make another video on the process of building the prototype, and we'll reveal the pre-order date, and after that video it'll be available for purchase and we'll be on to our next model. So thanks for watching.